So the way machine learning study jam works, study jams are 4 weeks long. So this is a 4-week long program. We are taking the entire month of September to focus on these concepts of machine learning. And we are going to be using Kaggle, which is completely free. It's the world's largest community for data science and machine learning. There's lots of really cool competitions and cash prizes and things like that that's going on. It's a huge community of users and data scientists and everybody. So if you haven't been over to Kaggle yet, please make sure that you jump in there at kaggle.com, create an account, get started with those courses. The goal of the Study Jam, of course, is not to make anyone an expert in just a few weeks, but to deploy, basically rapidly level up the most essential skills you need so that you can get started doing things right away. And then, of course, you can grow your skill set over time. But really, it's just like throwing us into the deep end, getting us started with these core concepts and the most essential skills. So the PD portion of that, it's in Kaggle. We're covering the really most important stuff. And then the other aspect of it is this community event. You know, you can do this on your own, no problem. But being able to do this as a community, I think, is really helpful, because I've been talking about learning this for a couple of years, but I organized this Study Jam series really to force myself to actually get it done, because otherwise, you know, it's just not going to get prioritized and it's not going to happen. So by committing ourselves to a schedule, by joining a community, by holding ourselves accountable together, we can collectively move that for that goal, you know, move further along towards the goal, push the needle, push ourselves, and actually, you know, accomplish some of these goals that we've set out for ourselves. So we have a facilitated discussion space. We are using Slack primarily for that, although there's not a lot of chatter in there. So I'm hoping that as you folks are working through the Kaggle lessons, as I'm working through the Kaggle lessons, you know, and we think of things, please drop them into the Slack channel. Let's have a conversation. We've got experts in our group that can helpfully answer some of those questions. And we've got a whole bunch of rookies like me that can, you know, weigh in on what they tried out and whatever. Let's just have a conversation. You know, we're trying to grow collaboratively. So that shared discussion space is happening over in Slack, and I dropped it into chat. And then we have our live weekly workshops that you guys are here, and our tech talks. We've got a whole series of fantastic guest speakers, including Kaʻimi for today. And, you know, it's just going to be really exciting. So again, you know, thank you for participating in the Study Jam. So here's what we're going to be learning. This week, we focused on the first Kaggle course, which is Intro to Machine Learning. And I chose for the Study Jam that we're only going to focus on one course every week, because some of us don't have any more time to give besides our lunch break. You know, we're all busy. We're wearing like all these different hats stacked up on our head. So I didn't want to overwhelm anybody by trying to overcommit everybody to, you know, learning a whole bunch of stuff. So we're just focusing on one course every week. Each course is about 4 hours long. So honestly, you can knock it out 1 hour a day during your lunch break. Join us on Friday. Easy peasy, no stress, no extra time out of your schedule. So that's what we're doing. This week was the first week. The first course was Intro to Machine Learning. And if you folks finished that already, or, you know, were interested in other things, I also had some recommendations that I posted in the channel for some other courses you could do. Next week, we're focusing on pandas. We're learning, diving deeper into data manipulation, data cleanup, things like that. And then some other recommended courses are listed on there as well. Week 3, we're diving deeper into machine learning with that intermediate machine learning course. And then week 4, we're really getting into deep learning and artificial intelligence. And again, there's a whole bunch of additional things in Kaggle that you can learn about in those topics. So lots of really cool stuff coming up. Monday through Friday, again, your job is to keep working on those Kaggle lessons. It really shouldn't take you more than an hour a day. If you got a block of time, go ahead and knock out courses, go crazy, whatever. But you know, I'm hoping we can all commit to spending at least an hour every day completing some of these Kaggle lessons to move us closer to our goal of understanding these concepts. And then Friday, today, we have our live session. And then Saturday and Sunday, please take your weekend to relax and also think about practical applications for your new skills. You know, come up with some ideas, mull over some startup concepts, you know, think about those big problems and issues and how you might solve them. let's take this the next step to explore practical applications for the things that we're learning in real life. So good? Okay, so with that, I am really excited to introduce our guest speaker for today to kick us off for our very first session. Kaʻimi, thank you so much for joining us today. I will stop sharing and you can take it away. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, let me go ahead and try to share my screen. 1 second. And I'm going to turn my video off as well just to save some bandwidth. Hey, does this working?
Yeah, looks great.
All right, let me try to put it in full screen. Is it still working? Look better?
It looks good.
Okay, awesome. All right, so hello everyone. Thank you again for joining. So my name is Kaʻimi Kahihikolo, and again I'll be the first guest speaker in this machine learning study jam series. And mahalo Krista for the invite. I really appreciate it. So I do have some slides prepared, but I do hope to work through them quickly and then just save some time to talk story and volao. And so first I'll just introduce myself so you can see why am I talking about AI. Then I would then share a little bit about the company I work for, Booz Allen Hamilton. Then I'll share a brief demo of a recent project that I've worked on that uses AI and ML. Unfortunately, due to the nature of my work, I can't discuss every single project I do in great detail, but this is one that I can talk a little deeper about. But if you have any questions about some other projects, I can kind of talk around them to some degree. And then, like I said, hopefully at the end, I can save some time to talk story or answer questions. Okay, so a little bit about me. So again, my name is Kaʻimi. I'm native Hawaiian, born and raised all over Oahu, and I currently live in Kaka'ako. I've been a data scientist at Booz Allen for the past 3 years or so. And over here, I serve as a lead AI ML developer within their R&D division, again, for the past 3 years or so, and help them deliver cutting edge technologies to their clients. I'll talk a little bit more about what Booz Allen Hamilton is or what they do later. But throughout my time with Booz Allen, I've worn many hats at the company. So along doing data science, I also do a lot of ML ops. If you don't know what ML ops is, it's basically how you can go from experimenting with AI to moving it into a production setting. That does take its own level. There's its own potential barrier to go from experimenting to production. So that's something that I specialize in. But I've also dabbled in things like data engineering, cloud computing. I even did a little bit for quite a bit. I also did some work in web development. So kind of just wore many hats. I'm just deeply passionate about all things technology. So whenever it comes to learning a new tool, I am more than happy to dive in and learn more about it. So I'm currently supporting our CDC or Booz Allen CDC clients, specifically the COVID-19 response, performing big data analytics. And when I say big data, I mean actually big data. Often that term kind of gets used inaccurately. Our team actually helps analyze and process over a petabyte of structured medical records. And if you don't know what a petabyte is, that is 1,000 terabytes or 1 million gigabytes. So a lot of data. And that's not images, that's structured tables. And that's a lot of information. Before Booz Allen, I got my degree in astrophysics from UH Manoa. And before that, I graduated from KS Kapalama. So you may be wondering, how did I go from astrophysics to AI? So for some people, it seems like a random jump going from looking at pretty pictures to this. Well, there are a few things in astrophysics. One, we learn how to code. Two, well, let me clarify. One, we learn how to code, probably not well, but we learn how to code a little bit. Two, we learn some math. Three, we learn how to analyze large and complex data sets. We're looking at the universe, so it can be very complex. And all of these things help immensely in data science, especially the math side, or the math side can help significantly. So now I'll provide a little bit of background about the company I work for, so Booz Allen Hamilton. I'm not going to ramble too much about them. I just want to just quickly mention. So first off, no, Booz Allen is not a law firm, which is the first thing I thought when I first heard the name many years ago. Like, oh, why is this law firm doing technology? Booz Allen is actually a Fortune 500 company that provides services and solutions, and as I mentioned here, management, tech, consulting, and engineering. And we currently have about 30,000 employees worldwide, so it's a pretty big company. I personally operate out of out of our Honolulu office, which primarily supports our defense clients. So here, so such as the Air Force, Navy, Army, etc. So that's primarily what the Honolulu focus supports. But as I mentioned earlier, I am actively working in our civil market, supporting our clients over in the CDC and the health agencies. And thankfully, given the headquarters in Georgia, I can help them remotely. That does lead to some weird working hours, but can't complain working remotely. Something I did want to mention is that Booz Allen has a summer internship program called the Summer Games. So the reason I bring that up is that I had the amazing opportunity or privilege to be a mentor for the interns this past summer and actually guide them through an analytics project. So I would like to share with you the project they worked on. And if you have any questions, just please let me know. I did want to mention, again, it was a great privilege because the interns that we got, they came in with no prior background in analytics. So it really was a summer of zero to hero. How do we turn them into data scientists in 8 to 10 weeks, or whatever slice that we can achieve. So let me move on here. So as I said, I had the privilege to work with an amazing intern. So we had a group of 4 girls here. They absolutely killed it this past summer. And we made sure to select interns who either live in Hawaii or go to school in Hawaii in an effort to kind of support our community and build it a little further. However, collectively across the firm, like I said, it's a big firm. We have, I think, about 30 teams of interns, which equates to, I think, about 100, 120 interns. So it's quite a big internship program and had this awesome group of 4 here. All of them have engineering or are in engineering programs, but like I said, none of them have a formal background in analytics. But keep that in the back of your mind when you're watching this present, watching what they did and like, wow, they did that. They did a lot of great work. Okay, so for their particular project, we gave which they codenamed Maluhia. They wanted to give it a cool name, so they want that. Is a framework for analyzing the legitimacy of social media data by implementing pre-trained open source models. And if that was a bunch of gibberish, don't worry, I'll break down some of those terms as we go. Particularly, they were focused on detecting bot-generated content and classifying hate speech within social media data. Again, given the federal government orientation of Booz Allen, they decided to focus on the Philippines' general public perspective of the China and U.S. conflict. Their goal was to basically analyze social media data in order to produce automated dashboards and reports to generate actionable insights using AI and machine learning. So again, real-world application real-world project that they're tackling in a summer.
Hey, Kaʻimi, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, sure.
We can only see the master slide, your deck, so I'm not sure if you're sharing. It sounds like you're referring to something else on your screen, but not seeing it.
I've been sharing this entire time. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, now I can see your Maluhia slide.
Okay, maybe it's better if I don't go in full screen. Maybe that caused the issue. So I will just leave it like this.
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
Okay, well, I was showing things along the way, but I'll just quickly just toggle back. That's me.
Yeah, it sounded like you're referring to a slide, and I'm like, oh, the slide hasn't changed, so I better let you know.
Okay, thank you. So that's me. Again, this is the slide I was talking about my company. So just, here's like the different markets they support. So, for example, again, the Honolulu office primarily supports defense, so like Air Force, Army, Navy, etc. And then again, I support the civil market here. And here are the 4 interns I was talking about. So, amazing group of 4 interns. And then again, absolutely killed it this past summer. So let me go back to here. There we go. I think this is where I was. Technical difficulties, great. So again, their goal was to take social media data in order to produce automated dashboards and reports, again, to generate that sort of actionable insights using AI and ML. So let me move on to the next slide. Okay, so essentially they took publicly available social media information, specifically Twitter data, then used AI and ML techniques, specifically a subfield of AI called NLP, or natural language processing, to analyze those tweets and produce reports. So I'm not too sure how far into your ML journey you've gotten, but NLP again is a subfield of AI, which is responsible for how do you analyze text information or text data, which does require its own level of knowledge besides it's working with numbers. So particularly we're looking at NLP in this project, and again the goal is to take these sort of outputs of these models and produce automated reports and dashboards. Okay, so there were cool animations, but we'll just leave it like this. So that sounds great, but how did they do it? How did they tackle this project? So this diagram illustrates the workflow of accomplishing said goal. So step one is data collection. And it's something you're going to learn throughout your AI journey, that AI means nothing without data. Data is always the first step. To that end, they leveraged a tool called Signal, which is a platform for extracting social media data from a variety of platforms. Directly, it supports getting social media data from things like Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, etc. However, for given the time span of their project, we focused on Twitter in this particular phase. We don't want to make it too complicated. And they were actually able to pull in almost 5 million tweets to analyze. So a lot of data. And this brings me to step two. How do you analyze that much information? So step two is data processing. So to that end, they leveraged a tool called Databricks. So Databricks is a cloud-based platform that provides tools to analyze large amounts of complex data using something called Apache Spark. Not going to go too much detail there, but if you have questions about it, Databricks is an absolutely great platform. It's not perfect, but it's not perfect in across everything, but it does lie in a really good and a good space for their particular audience. So yeah, they use Databricks for this data processing, and then once the data is processed and cleaned, and it sounds like you folks are learning that next week, the data is then applied. We then apply pre-trained models from a platform called Hugging Face. So again, Hugging Face is a collection of ML models contributed by the open source community for a variety of applications that come pre-trained. And so depending on your level of knowledge with ML, the idea of pre-train is probably confusing. But instead of you training those ML models from scratch, someone already did the hard work for you, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So for example, there may be a model that if you put in a block of text, it'll tell you, was the person happy or sad? Or if you put in a picture of a dog or cat, it'll say that's a dog or a cat. So you don't have to worry about training the model to do that. It's already done for you. So it's actually really important to not have to reinvent the wheel constantly. So Hugging Face is a great tool for that. Step three is the data analysis step. So this is where the results are then collected and visualized in these automated dashboards and reports directly through the Databricks platform. Databricks again is meant to be like your one-stop shop for everything. You can pull in all your data, you can store your data, analyze it, apply your ML models, visualize it. So it's meant to be your one-stop shop. All right, moving on. Okay, so one of the first things that you will learn in your AI and ML journey is that data can be messy, and it's very important to clean it. And again, it sounds like that's going to be the focus of next week. We like this. It's a common term: garbage in, garbage out. So if you feed garbage into your AI models, the predictions of a set of AI models will be garbage as well. So you want to make sure you do your best to make sure the data that goes in is clean and relevant. So in this particular data set, they pulled in a lot of irrelevant tweets. So their first goal was to go through the data set of these hundreds of thousands or millions of tweets and remove the irrelevant ones, or try to remove them programmatically. So for example, one of the search terms that they used to pull in the tweets was the word quote unquote army. However, that returned many tweets about the K-pop group BTS and their quote army. So although hilarious, is not directly applicable to this project yet, but it's still funny to see that, again, searching for the keyword army in Twitter gives a lot of BTS tweets. However, there are some tweets that are more relevant, such as, the second or third tweet here, a little more relevant towards the use case, where, you can see discussing more U.S. China based or world, or sorry, dealing with things that relate to the world as opposed to social or music. Okay, so let me move to the next one. Okay, so once the data is clean, the next goal for their project is to perform something called sentiment analysis, which is an application of AI. So the goal of sentiment analysis is to categorize a body of text into negative, neutral, or positive sentiment. Basically, were they angry, neutral, or happy in that body of text, or was the author, one of those things in that body of text? And it really is one of the kind of hello world versions of or projects at NLP, but it does have a lot of complexities in it when it comes to applying sentiment analysis or even training your own sentiment analysis models. So this task is often easy to do for a human, but it can be hard to do so programmatically. You know, to the average human, I can give them a block of text and say, "Oh yeah, that person was probably happy when they wrote it, or this person was probably angry when they wrote it based off of the words I see here." But it's hard to do so programmatically. So this is where AI comes to play. So here are some examples of some tweets with varying sentiment. On the left, we see a negative one that discusses things like, again, it's not so much the content; it's maybe the presence of certain words. We talk about Trump, COVID, January 6th, and they mention things like greatest tragedy. So you can see how that sort of tweet may be painted in a negative light. Meanwhile, you have something on the right, which can be perceived as a more positive sentiment, where helps with where this particular one talks about helping to rebuild Ukraine. So and not so much the content, or it's rather the presence of certain keywords that can paint it in a positive or negative light. Again, a simpler example is I love cake or I hate cake. Clearly you can see that there. So let me move to the next one. So before I was just talking through the process of what they did. So now let's actually show you what they actually did. And again, apologies, there was some animations here, but we'll just stick on this view for now. So here's again sample of one of their automated reports. So first we'll start on the top right. So they used another AI model that classifies a body of text, so like a tweet, into different categories, just so you can easily determine, okay, what's this tweet talking about? So you can see it categorizes into things like news and social concern, business and entrepreneurship, film and TV, music, and it immediately gives you a way to process your tweets and tag them into certain categories. So as you can see within their particular data set of about 5 million tweets, majority of them are news and social concern. If you look at this bottom one here, you also can see that they can take their tweet information, these tweets, scrub them for mentions of things like U.S. or United States or China, Chinese, etc., and pick up those words, and then kind of and tag them based off of subject. So you can see, was this tweet talking about U.S.? Was this tweet talking about China? And you kind of analyze those tweets and tag them and present them in an interface like that. The third component I want to show off really quickly is on this left side here. So this is a visualization style called a word map, or word cloud, which shows you the prevalence of keywords mentioned. So the idea is that they can pull in their tweets, and these are the most popular words that showed up. The bigger the word, the more prevalent. So in this case, things like America, China, Biden, etc., were the most common words. I'm guessing this was maybe an animation. So that's an example of something a word cloud can do. And so immediately you can see if you have this sort of automated dashboard, or this sort of dashboard automated, so it's always looking at tweets, always pulling it in. You can gain a lot of useful information from this sort of report. You can see, okay, are people in this particular country happy or sad about a particular topic? Are we seeing an uptick in negative sentiment or a downtick in negative sentiment? Is there a certain term that's been popping up recently? Is a particular country being mentioned more in this month as opposed to previously? So something like this is incredibly useful for for a government analyst to look at and be able to quickly tease out useful information. Oh, sorry. There's also like there's other graphics here, but here's another example at the bottom, um, where they actually counted the number of negative, neutral, and positive tweets from particular accounts of interest. So if there's accounts they want to look at, they can pull them in and specifically look at how much negative information or negative sentiment information are they putting out into the public. So these are just examples of components of said report that can be generated using all these great tools. Okay, so the next important component that I wanted to discuss about the product that they developed is something called model explainability. And again, this is another one of those things that you'll learn a lot, or you should learn in your AI and ML journey, is how to trust your models. So you may learn how to train these tree algorithms, these SVMs and SVRs, and or these deep neural networks. But how do you trust the model? How do you so why did this black box function return those results? Why did it say this particular tweet was negative while this other one was neutral, while this other one was positive? So it has become really important in the past, I guess, couple of years. It's been become more popular, is using model explainability techniques to determine why are the models giving these predictions that it's giving. So here's an example of applying this process using a tool called Lime, which is an open source library that you can install. And what it's doing is actually taking in a tweet of interest, and it will tell you it's because of these words that I classified it as negative. So in this particular example, we fed in this tweet here. The model said negative, and when we asked the question, okay, why did you think it was negative? And what this tool would do is it yield results like this, where it says because these 4 words in particular and how they were used or when they were used led the model to predicting negative as opposed to neutral or positive. So this again has become an important thing in a lot of AI projects, is to throw in a layer of model explainability to figure out, okay, why did that ML model predict dog instead of a cat? In this case, looking at text-based information. Okay, and I just want to add one more slide here. So just to wrap things up, I just wanted to mention again that the interns were able to build out a really great project in only 10 weeks, and that would be incredibly useful for our clients. And you can probably tell there's probably a lot of other applications of a framework like this. And yeah, just the ability to pull in large amounts of data, analyze them, generate actionable insight is a process you'll see a lot in a lot of different industries. So that's all I had prepared. So yeah, we can open up to questions or talk story. But yeah, I just wanted to just show off the great work that the interns did, and I was able to help them present this project.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. And it's interesting to see how a project like that, and it seems like the way you talk about it, it makes it seem like it's a pretty simple project. Like, wow, that wasn't so complicated, but so useful, right? So many practical applications for a project like that. What are some of the things, in your opinion, since you've been working now in this arena for a little while, what are some of the issues that we collectively could try to solve for us here in Hawaii?
Oh, okay, that's a hard question.
Okay, think about that a little bit.
Yeah, I have to think about that one. And you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of interesting problems to tackle, especially when it comes to language, decolonizing technology. And there's actually been some issues with that in AI and machine learning, where the model, again, it folds into the model explainability thing, where you might find that you may unintentionally train models that have a negative view of certain individuals, social economic status or race, ethnicity, and you find that these ML models have these certain gaps, because it relates to the point I said earlier about garbage in, garbage out. If you feed in data where certain groups of individuals are painted in a negative light, you'll get models that paint those same people in a negative light again. So for example, even with the Hugging Face model that the interns applied, I had them do background research on those models. And even on the documentation of said model, they said, hey, there are some problems with this model. If you say, I love, I love films from France, it's given a pretty high sentiment. If you say, I love films from Russia, it's a little lesser positive sentiment. It's still positive, but you can see that it starts to skew a little bit. So you can see there are some important, this sort of problem can leak into other areas, and if you're not careful with how you apply AI and ML technologies. So all this to say is, be careful about the data you apply and how, and be responsible in how you apply AI and ML techniques.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's really important. And in the work that I do, I am always looking at things through this decolonizing critical lens, because here in Hawaii, we've been occupied by the United States for so long and colonized for so many generations now that it's hard even for us to see what some of those implications of colonization are for our own data here in Hawaii, and for our own models, and for our own applications of technology right here at home. So that's a really great point. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. It's even, there's a personal project I'm working on the side where if you've ever tried to put in any Hawaiian word in Google Translate, their translation is terrible. So that's a side project I've been working on, is, okay, let's try to train a model that's a little more accurate to how the Hawaiian language works. So,
yeah, that's awesome. So there's a couple questions in the chat. Kurt is asking, I'm interested in how Line generated those weights for each word. Like, does it sub out words and run the model heaps of time?
Yeah, that's exactly how Line works. And you can look into their documentation where you do feed in a bit of text, or if it's an image, it takes that input, perturbs it a little bit, and it looks at the output of the model, and it runs that however many times you say to run it. So if you run that same body of text through 1,000 times, and each iteration it perturbs it a little bit and looks at the distribution and says, okay, it's because of these words, presence or absence, that caused it to predict this, to give this prediction. And similar with images, it's if it blurs the image in certain ways or removes certain parts of the image, it yields a different result. So that's exactly how something like Line, where there's other packages that do a similar approach.
Thank you. And Brian is asking, it was interesting to see tried was incorrectly considered a non-neutral word because of its other meaning, like tried in court, for example, in the second from the last slide that you had. And it shows why the explainability is so important. Thank you for bringing that up, Brian. Do you want to expand on that just a little bit, Kaʻimi?
Oh, exactly, yeah. So actually, let me pull that up while I'm discussing it. Let's just as we're talking. So it was referring to this body of text here, where it flagged that tried here was highlighted as not neutral or negative in this case. So yeah, it just found, again, by perturbing the words and its placement within a sentence, that it belonged in the negative category, as opposed to
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because usually we think of try as a good thing, right? Yeah, I went out there and I tried it, and that was a positive thing.
But it picked up on the context of tried, as in court tried. Yeah.
Yeah, but the context of this sentence is a little bit different. So it's a good example of how the model might need to be tweaked just a little bit, since it's looking at different meanings of a word in context, right?
Exactly. So this sort of model explainability, it's important not only just, it's important to determine how trustworthy your model is, because it's completely okay if you have to go back to the drawing board and say, hey, this model doesn't work yet. I need to feed it more or better data. So you might find through these model explainability that the model is just completely focusing on the wrong parts of this image. I was working on a computer vision project once where, when it was giving its classification, it wasn't actually looking at any of the subject. It was, for some reason, the model was looking at the background of the image, which was just, wasn't relevant at all for the particular application. So it's useful for debugging as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Kaʻimi? And in the meantime, something for everybody to think about. What are some of the big issues that either Hawaii is facing here locally, or if you're from outside of Hawaii, what are the big issues that are facing your community? And how can machine learning help with those issues? What of these, which of these issues are particularly meaningful for you, right? There's so many, and we can't solve everything, but all of us, I'm sure, have some issues that are particularly close to home that are really meaningful to you. And, perhaps some of us can be inspired to try to address some of these issues on your own. Feel free to drop something in the chat, or if anybody wants to chime in really quick and just talk about what some of these issues are and how, why it's meaningful to you and how machine learning can help with those issues. I guess one more question to think about is, how might we empower our own communities to tackle some of those issues? I mean, machine learning is only a part of the solution, right? Solutions are always going to require so many different things. But perhaps each of us in our own way as influencers can help make a difference to move us toward some of those goals. So some things to think about in here. Constantine, thank you for your comment. I think as we transition to renewable energy like solar and biofuels, ways where energy will need to be stored and diverted to different areas, definitely distribution of resources has always been a problem. And I've been telling my kids that for their whole lives, that planet Earth does not have a population problem. We have a distribution of resources problem. And energy is, it's another thing that needs to be distributed and stored and managed. So how can we handle those issues in a better way to move us toward our clean energy goals? So absolutely, that's definitely an important issue. I'm going to drop a link here in the chat as well. This is for a YouTube video you can watch on your own time. It's only about 5 minutes long. I also shared it in some of our social channels earlier this week. This is addressing, it's taking a look at an issue affecting the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. So Kurt, down in your part of the world, and how data scientists use machine learning to address some of the problems affecting their reefs. Here in Hawaii, we don't have the problem with the crown of thorns starfish, I don't think, but we have huge issues with invasive algae and sea warming and other threats to our corals and ecosystems. So if we can use machine learning to help address some of those issues here at home, anything we can do, I think, is moving towards those solutions. So again, thank you, Kaʻimi. Please, let's continue our conversation in Slack. If you have some other thoughts that you think about later on, please jump into our Slack channel. Let's continue this conversation and talk about these issues and how machine learning can help. All right, so next steps. And we are 5 minutes to the hour. I know we want to wrap up really quick. Again, Kaʻimi, thank you so much for your presentation. If you haven't started your Kaggle course yet for week 1, like I said, it's not too late. We are focusing on intro to machine learning this week. It's only 3 hours long. I myself still have 2 more lessons to finish up, and then I'll be done with the course for this week. There will be a completion certificate at the end of every course. So make sure you download your completion certificates, share it out on your social channels, be proud of your accomplishments. Go ahead and do that. There is plenty of time to finish the Kaggle course for this week. And again, that was at kaggle.com. I just dropped that in the chat, so you can do that anytime this weekend. Next week, again, we are focusing on pandas. Lots of data manipulation stuff. The pandas course, I think, is only a few hours also, so it won't take too long. And you can try out some Kaggle challenges, maybe win some cash prizes. That should be really good. So make sure you do that. And then lastly, please be sure to register for next week's session. If you haven't done that already, I dropped the link in. We are going to be hearing from Maddie Shang. She is a phenomenal change maker in the blockchain AI space. She's also a Women Tech Makers engineer, and I'm really looking forward to her talk for next week. So please make sure that you RSVP, save a space, share it with your friends. Again, we're just trying to grow the community and help elevate the work that we're doing here. Like you said, Ryan, we're here, we're doing it, and maybe other people aren't paying attention. So please help share that out so that we can do that. Okay, before we go, last but not least, to thank everybody for coming, we've got door prizes. So if you checked in for today, I think I've got everybody on this list. We're going to spin the wheel. I've got prize packs. I've got 2 prizes I'm giving away. So looks like Ben Kinsey, congratulations. I will be sending you the link to fill out to claim your prize pack for today.
Yay.
If you could please, yay, please drop your email, send me a direct message in the chat or in Slack so that I can send you that information. We are giving away in our prize pack, you can choose from a data science related book from Amazon. I've got a Udemy course, and I also have a Kamehameha Schools microfiber tile and bamboo utensil set from my employer. So a few things to choose from for this week. I've also got one more prize. Let's go ahead and do that. And our winner is Ryan. Congratulations. So please send me your email also so I can send you the form so you can claim your prize for this week. Have a great week, everybody. And, have fun. We'll talk to you again soon.